Okay. Oh, so wonderful to see everybody here today. Thank you so much. We are so happy to have you here to celebrate our 6-year journey toward the restoration of the Winton Post Office Museum. So thank you for coming. I'd like to ask our board members to stand, and I'll call your name and just give a wave. Well, most of them are at the back, so that's going to be difficult. Barbara Boone Busher, she and her husband Paul are selling postcards and note cards with the post office and scenes from Winton in it. Hugh Davis had to be absent today. Bud Jones is in the back with the refreshments, garden up food. Mark Jones, we're all related, I'm sorry, is standing with Bud. Marvin Jones is right up front. Jane Newsom checks you in with name cards. Good to see you, Jane. Tim Newsom, her son, there's Tim, and Melanie Story. I think Melanie is about the only one of our board members that's not related to the others. So. I'd also like to ask the other people here who actually helped work on the Post Office Museum to stand. I see a few. Bessie Pierce was there scrubbing, pulling, hauling, whatever she needed to do. Thanks, Bessie. We had others who are out of state, are not here today. Andrea and Kurt Thorne were newcomers to Winton, and they are from Michigan. They go there during the summer and come back here in the winter. They're not back yet. Carolyn Bazemore was one of my sidekicks for several years and was on the board. She was not able to be here today. Carolyn and Jane and I were the 3 members of our board who were right here in town. So when there were decisions to be made up to a certain money level, we could go in and make it. Otherwise, I would go to the board and text them and say, can we do this? And they'd say yes. So we had a good system with many responsible people with a lot of knowledge and information to help with this project. And also Sandra Newsom is a past board member. Would you stand, Sandra? She was always there to do anything digital, printing, note cards, postcards, ideas. Sandra's great. I also want to give special recognition to the tradesmen that helped us too. And I did see David Calderado come in. This man works at Bahoski, so talented. And I don't believe I saw anybody else that worked on the facility. Okay. If you're here, please stand. Okay, good. Another special thanks goes to Maxine Brett and her recognition of the value of restoration of historic buildings. Maxine served on our board from 2017 until her death in 2021. And her brother, Steve Brown, is here, along with his wife, Debbie. Would you all stand, please? There you go. Thank you. Thank you for being here. They come from near Raleigh, right? Okay. We also welcome Gene Motley. We want you to say good things about us today, Gene. Thank you very much. He's with the Roanoke Children News Herald. And we have Lee with the Albemarle Regional Library, who's going to be our videographer for today. Lee, would you stand? Okay, there you go. Town council members, Blake Bly, Amy Winstead are here. Am I missing anybody else? Would you all stand? Blake, Amy, sitting together. Okay. Our post office museum was funded principally by the dues of our members from 2015 to 2025. So we have membership forms around the room. Please consider joining us. Our members contributed the main portion of the money that went into restoring this building. There were grants, but I'll report on that later. Our work was to restore that building. We have also not only made it a post office museum, we have made it a Winton History Museum where we can change out the displays periodically. Our next exhibit will be with the help of the Museum of the Albemarle. Wanda Laster, curator, would you stand, please? She's gonna be so mad at me. Thank you. On the memorable sands about Chowan Beach, and we are planning to also collect information on Tuscarora Beach. So it'll be a display about the two segregated beaches that existed in Hertford County during most of our lifetimes. We also worked in 2020 to get the Winton Historic District on the National Register of Historic Places. So any property owner in town within the historic district that has a contributing home can get tax credits toward restoration for a house, state tax credits, and business is federal and state tax credits. So these annual memberships help us stay on track and get the job done. I invited every politician that represents us. So I already had Blake and Emmy stand from the town council. Let's see, Bobby Hainig, would you stand, please? Bobby Hainig is North Carolina Senate, and he is, which district? One. Sorry, I knew that. He is also running for U.S. Congress, so thank you for coming. Bill Ward, State House, District 5, thank you. John Taylor is here representing U.S. Senator Ted Budd. Thanks, John. Okay, now you have to listen to me just a little bit longer about the history. The Taylor family. And we have Phil Taylor here who will tell us more about that. It was built in 1915. There's a concrete block at the top of the building with that date on it. It served as the Winton Post Office from 1915 to 1962. We do not know where the prior post offices were. Much of the time, the postmaster might have been a storekeeper in town or justice of the peace, some other job, and the post office would be in their home. There was no rural mail delivery at that time. People had to get to the post office to collect their mail. And again, 1915 is the time the building was built. Okay, so we began this journey in 1920. We had a legal journey to gain ownership of the post office museum. But the COVID pandemic slowed our efforts. John Richard Jordan, his wife Brenda, and John's sister Elsie Jordan were the main drivers in the restoration of the post office at that time. They began in about 1955 looking for money and for grants. And then by 2001, they had enough to finish it and open it. There was a big parade of speakers. John Richard Jordan had been in the North Carolina legislature. He was on the board of governors at UNC. He'd been in a study group in law school with Terry Sanford and Bill Friday, so he knew a few people. And so Bill Friday came and spoke that day, along with former Governor Bob Scott. As the years passed, Elsie and John Jordan passed away. The condition of the building deteriorated, and by 2020, the roof leaked in multiple places, and the artifacts were still inside the building. And furniture dating back to the 1800s was sitting in wet conditions. There were documents there dating from 1885. And later on, we found that we had the Hertford County tax records from 1895 to about 1899. And when I called the state archives, they told me that those were theirs and they were coming to get them, and they did. So in late 2021, before we ever owned the building, the board voted to repair the roof and patch it. And we replaced broken window panes so we could stop the water pouring into the building. Next picture is 2022. August 2022, we got ownership of the building. Interesting story. The former deeds gave the building to the Murfreesboro Historic Association if it ever stopped serving its purpose as a museum. So the family deeded the museum to Murfreesboro Historical Association, and Murfreesboro Historical Association deeded it to us, and we paid all the legal expenses. And we thank our lawyer for taking care of that. You want me to recognize you?
Thank you for paying me.
Oh, at any time. It's good to have a lawyer on the board. Artifacts, those are Carolyn Bazemore's hands. We got in there with paintbrushes that were clean, Wanda. They were, you see our gloves, we have those 1880s store records. We had a ball going through there and seeing names and family names of people we knew. My grandfather always paid cash. So, and we saw countless names, and it just was a delight for us to clean this building and clean the artifacts. And then we packed them into boxes. Jane Newsom volunteered climate-controlled storage. So everything was packed in boxes, wrapped in acid-free paper, put in climate control, and all the furniture was taken out. All the items except a massive 1800 safe were moved. 2022 through 2023, now came the job of lining up contractors post-pandemic and tradesmen to complete the renovation. Supplies were iffy, shipping was delayed, and prices of goods and labor soared as a result of the pandemic. We requested bids and got in line for availability of tradesmen as they completed prior commitments, because the good people had work and we had to wait in line for them. We received several grants. The Covington Foundation is a group in Greensboro that provides grant funds for historic preservation projects across the state. We received $10,000 from them. And Hertford County offers grants to nonprofits. So across 3 years, we received $7,700 from the county. You see the condition of the plaster in the whole building. And every baseboard was rotten. Every windowsill was water damaged and rotten. And David Calderado will testify that the termites enjoyed a lot of our furniture too. This is a look at our very secure back door. I took a piece of cardboard and put it across the bottom to keep critters out. August 2023, our contractor came in to begin work. But as we got ownership of the building that month, the leaks in the roof and rotted beams and the beadboard ceiling were repaired. Colin and Patsy Jones donated the beadboard they had on hand at their home from a tear down at the Bazemore house in Ahoskie. Or I probably have that wrong, but they got it from somewhere. My husband will attest that I'm not usually so humorous. And this is Jerry Castello and his son Charlie. You see the difference. You see the difference in the beadboard. That's what was put up in 1915, and that's what was available to us, and they made it work. It was all seamless when they finished. The next photo is of the added bathroom on the back. The termite inspector came over and he said, "There's no more wood in here. The termites ate it all." So we had to tear that off, and the HVAC system was dead too. That was another big repair. The next picture is of Charlie Castello and his cousin Dylan Mizell. We rebuilt the bathroom, and you'll notice that on back, there's an arch on the front door. There's an arch there. We were not able to save that because the roof line had to go back up against the building up in here. But concrete ready-mix product, commercial ready-mix products provided the concrete for us. And then the building was framed out. And then we used hardy board. The interior was insulated. Now the rest of the post office, when you view it today, is not insulated. That building was thick brick walls, and we laid the plaster right on a mesh on the walls. Our next slide. Jerry Blow and Stephen Pylan were our electricians and provided new wiring for the place. And look at that at night. Beautiful flag, and the lights on the exterior were done from the ground up because we did not want to drill through that brick and allow any more water to find a way to get into that building. Here are the 7 windowsills in the building. Everyone was rotten except one. Water came in from the outside and damaged the windowsills and rotted the wood below. Jerry Castello and his crew used copper and copper flashing to move the water to the outside. All of the windows came out and were refurbished. These are the windows with the cords and weights that are back up in the wall. That was all put back in place. After their basic carpentry was done, in the late fall, we had a drywall and plaster, Lee's Drywall and Plaster from Wendell came and did our plaster work for us. And then after the plaster was done, the carpenters came back in the building to do the finish work. That was in 2023 in the fall. We had to wait until the spring of 2024 to get our painter. Here's what the ceiling looked like. They stained all the woodwork, painted the walls, painted windows, the bars. Everything was painted again, except the bathroom. That's all in beadboard. We were going to open last fall. We had to cancel our opening because of this. Water damage. This is a safe that takes a jack to lift it up and move it. We got it away from the wall and repaired the plaster, and I'm showing you just one place. So with the damage to the plaster, we canceled our opening. Repairs were made on the roof. A brick mason came and worked on the exterior brick. And then you have to have plaster repair, and then you have to have paint. So it's a long process that builds on one another. We also added, our contractor said we should also add this capping. The roof slopes from front to back, but the building runs in a stair step along the side. So we put in a metal cap to cover the brick and the concrete at the top of the building so no water could come in that way. And that has been very helpful. Next comes our furniture repair. And here's David and his assistant. This is an original post office box that was stored in a barn, and this is all termite damage. It will be in our museum today, and you will not see termite damage. Pigeonhole desk for sorting mail, and they're bringing it back into the building. A a swivel office chair that someone picked up to move, and that was the result. So David has got a little hole, but don't sit in it. Next step is to finish the inside as we go to the outside. Commercial Ready Mix provided us with Kenny Lane to put up a sign we had purchased for it. And they brought over the bucket truck, and 1, 2, 3, I think there was a 4th man on that job to pull that thing up. So, there we are. I'd like to introduce our first speaker, Phil Taylor. And he has his siblings, Louise and Chris, here. Would you all stand too? They'll see Phil in just a minute. Brothers and sisters. All right, thank you. Come on up, Phil. He grew up in Winton and was at, do what? Oh, in lights, please. Thank you. Spent 8 years at Winton Elementary School and the next 4 years at Hosky High School. I came in as a freshman with his sister Louise. We are 4 years younger. And he was president of the senior class at Hosky High. He went on to NC State for a brief experiment. And he was encouraged by his father, Philip Taylor Sr., and his uncle Pat to enlist in the military. Both his dad and his uncle had served in World War II. And to surprise them all, as I'm sure he planned, he joined the Marines, right? His term in the military included 3 years enlisted and serving 2 years as a midshipman at the Naval Academy in Annapolis. He took the opportunity of trading his military uniform for a captain at UNC and completed his BA in 2 years, followed by 2 years for an MBA. Skipping ahead 2 years, he was accepted into the PhD program at Virginia Tech. 8 years later, he completed his degree and began his teaching research at Wesleyan College in Macon, Georgia. For the next 19 years, he advanced from assistant to associate to full professor, along with managing their new co-ed executive MBA program. And he recently retired in 2019 as Wesleyan's Professor Emeritus of Economics. And Phil's going to tell us about the Taylors that built the building.
And every other Taylor I could find.
All right.
I thank Libby for talking me into this. It didn't take too much talk, but maybe a phone call helped. I'm going to talk a little bit about what the Taylors had in this neck of the woods, and thanks to Ancestry.com and a couple of others, they took me way back. So my 6th great grandfather, Thomas John Taylor, was born in 1657 and died in 1754. He lived 97 years. So I'm hoping that some of those genes might pass along to me. We shall see. His son was Thomas John Taylor. He lived in Richmond County, Virginia, but died in Chowan County. So he was born in 1657, died in 1752. And his son was Robert Taylor. He, I guess, the only picture I had of some of these was someone's standing up behind the Stars and Stripes of that time. Not too many stars, not too many stripes, but he seemed proud of it. He was born in Gates County in 1725 and lived to be 1790. One of the other sort of things that sort of was associated with this was that all the early tailors only had one wife. There was only one of the tailors, Hilary Taylor, and he was also known as Colonel Hilary Taylor. He was born in Wellneck, Herbert, in 1819. He outlived his wife, married Peggy McFarland, for a few years, and he died in Harford County in 1843. His son was a name, should be very familiar, William Patrick Taylor. So now we're in the era of 1843 was his birth, and he lived in to 1915. And he, I guess, now that we're having multiple grandfathers, he was just my great-grandfather. And his cemetery is over that way, right?
Behind the Bible church.
Right, that way.
That way.
I'm terrible with directions. I'm going to, of course, visit that when I see it. The engravings on the tombstones are a little bit more readable than some that are behind the church here. My sister will correct me. She does it a lot, by the way. There is the William Patrick Taylor over there, and his brother, Simeon Taylor, is buried behind the church here.
That way.
Very good. And again, he, I guess, during his time, he, and the lack of a post office, he felt the need to sort of support that, provide funding for it. And his son, Patrick Taylor, there are so many Patrick Taylors in in my lineage. One of his sons, Patrick Taylor, he was born in 1880 and lived to 1927. And again, he's buried back that way. Too.
Excuse me.
Okay, we've already got his dates. His son, yeah. Okay, so Patrick Taylor Sr., 1843 to 1915, had a son, Patrick Henry Taylor. And, born in 1871, died in 1927. He, I believe, was in the, I guess, political arena. He was served as Secretary of State for a while. I don't think I'm not sure if he got to Lieutenant Governor or not. If he did, he didn't win the governorship anytime. So he was my grandfather. Yes. Probably great, but my great. He died before I was born. So up to that point, this was just, okay, I see this, do I trust Ancestry.com? And sometimes I got names right, sometimes didn't. But my grandmother was still alive at that time. And she went by the name Maddie, and a couple others that they couldn't figure out. But anyway, I think we just called her Mom or something. Anyway, but she lived and off and on took care of Louise and I as best she could for 2 or 3 years, and then she passed away. And so now we're up to my father, Philip Taylor Sr., not Jr., and an uncle, Pat Taylor. I think if we took back, there's probably 4 Pat Taylors, going back. And before the war, they both again served in the Army. I'm thinking they probably had a gas station or something on the corner, and then they both went off to war. And when they came back, my dad stayed here, and Uncle Pat looked for greener pastures in Raleigh. And so my dad especially were, a great influence. You did it his way. Period. I used to try to go to Raleigh a lot because my Pat Taylor was a little bit more lenient, but that was only because I was there 2 or 3, 4 weeks at a time or something. then he got tired of me and said, ship me back. But anyway, with the death of my father, Patrick Taylor, I don't even know her name anymore. Okay, Philip Taylor Sr., I'll do it backwards. And I'm Philip Taylor Jr. Okay. And coming back to Winton, where I grew up, makes me feel guilty sometimes, because after going into service and then jobs after that, or service after that, I never made it back that often. So, and if I did, it was only for funerals. And that was a little, when I look back on it, that's, you know, that's nice, but you could have done a little bit more than that. So I hope in the future, I'll turn 80 next year, still in relatively good health. So I hope to all of those who came up and said, "Oh, do you remember me?" The answer was no. But it's not because I wasn't, you know, it wasn't nice to be here. It was just, you know, my memory, and despite all the gray hair, you're all very attractive. So the post office that is sort of buried in all that, I guess, would be William P. Taylor and his son, Patrick. I think they overlapped enough so that there was some you know, benefits. You know, I guess William Patrick had the money, and his son had the political interest in it. So as rambling as that is, that's all I've got. So I'm happy to talk to anybody after this, and hope if you haven't come up and said, "Oh, don't you remember this?" I'll say no, but tell me anyway. And make it nice. So thank you very much for inviting me. And see you okay.
Is Herbert, and his sister Kathy came with him too. Where you go, Kathy? Kathy and Margaret and I rode horses together. There were a lot of kids in Winton had horses at that time, because the old stables were still in existence from the time where people had horses and carriages for transportation. Now, Herbert, his bio was 6 lines long and short ones, so I'm going to read them for you. Herbert married Ann, raised in Winton, resided in Virginia Beach, graduate of East Carolina University, retired from Bank of Hampton Roads, retired from the National Guard, and volunteered at the Veterans Hospital. So thank you for Herbie. Herbie's dad was Herbert Britt, the longest serving postmaster in Winton from 1945 to 1942. He was postmaster in both the 1915 building and in the one that was commissioned by John Fitzgerald Kennedy. So it's all yours, Herbie.
Thank you, Libby. Have you thought about applying this building for the National Termite Museum? It's really good to see you. I missed you, and I hope to see you again. Some of you are from out of town. Phil said it right when he said, if you see somebody on the street, instead of saying, "Hi, Herbie, do you know who I am?" say something like, "Hi, Herbie, I'm Woody's sister." Or, "Hi, Herbie, I'm Marion's Herman." My name is Herbert Brett. My sister's Kathy. Our parents were Herbert, Brett, and Catherine. You knew our dad as a postmaster for a number of years here. Like any man, you knew where to find him during the week and on Sunday. To Kathy and I, he was special. He was the postmaster. We were proud of him. He was proud to be the postmaster. In a box of old papers, I found the copy of a letter he had written to Congressman Herbert that said, "Thank you for supporting me. I got this job. I have been named temporary postmaster. But what I really wanted to be was permanent postmaster. So if you are speaking to President Truman, you might mention that." It happened somehow he became permanent postmaster. There was a time when postmasters owned the post office building. Herbert bought this building when he became postmaster from the previous postmaster, I suppose. But as Libby said, in the beginning, post offices were not built. The post offices were often in an existing business someplace. Hardware store, a buggy shop, lumber yard, what have you. Some of you may remember when the Cofield post office was in the back of a hardware store. I remember that. But I'm going to tell you something now that not many people know, except for Marvin, probably knows something about this. You know the beach a couple of miles up the river on the Gates County side, there's a sandy area suitable for swimming. Who knows the name of it? Gatlington, you're right. There was a time Gatlington was populated. People built houses and lived there. There was a hardware store. There was a hotel, there was a post office, and a fishery. Who would think? How did they get their mail and so forth? From steamboats that ran up and down the river all the time, because the railroad didn't come through here yet. There were no roads and trucks. I can imagine that that post office was in the hotel or the store. And I imagine that the hotel probably had about 4 rooms. They didn't have a lot of customers. Well, when I was a teenager, I worked at the post office for a while, summertime job, part-time, a few hours each week, and I learned how to put the mail in your boxes, and I knew how to sort the outgoing mail, cancel those stamps. The outgoing mail that was air mail and international or to the north went to Norfolk. The mail going to the west or the south went to Rocky Mountain. How hard could that be? Then there came a time I woke up at Fort Bragg, North Carolina. I was in basic training, learning how to be a soldier. The commander came out, welcomed everybody, told us a few rules, and said, "I need a volunteer. Has anybody here ever worked in a post office or handled official mail?" Well, what do you think? Average age is 18 and a half. I raised my hand. He said, "Oh yeah, what's so special about you?" I said, "My dad is postmaster for 20 years and I work part-time during the summer." He said, "Come here, private postmaster. You're going to need to show this card every day when you pick up our mail and bring it back to the barracks. Every afternoon, a random soldier would pick me up in a Jeep and we'd go to the post office and back to the barracks. I would call out the names: Smith, Turner, Taylor, friend. Suddenly I had 110 new best friends. I was the one giving them their love letters and cookies from their mom. I was more popular than Walter Cronkite. I called my dad to check in, and I said, Dad, they're giving me some responsibility. I'm passing out the mail out here for these soldiers. Do you have any advice for me? He said, oh yeah, 2 things. He said, number 1, if you call somebody's name and they're not there for some reason, don't put the letter in your pocket and save it for him. Don't put it on his bunk. Turn it into your sergeant so they can secure it in a proper way. And number 2, when you're passing out the mail, don't try to be cute or make any remarks, because all mail does not bring good news. Just do your job and mind your own business. If someone were to describe Herbert's career as postmaster, I think they would say he did his job, he minded his own business. I think if somebody were to describe the historic museum, they would say it did its job and it is old. The only job you knew that my dad had was postmaster, but when there was an opening for postmaster here, he already had a job a block away. The little building, which is a corner cafe building, that was an FCX building. Farmers Cooperative Exchange. They sold feed and seed and fertilizer. And that's when he applied for the job, and then he got the job. And Libby, I'm going to yield the rest of my time so we can go down here and celebrate something that we have that Gatlington does not.
Yes. Our next speaker and last speaker is Marvin Jones, his true gift to the Winton area. He's a native of Cofield, lives in DC and on the Hosky-Cofield Road. He founded the Chowan Discovery Group, and he researched documentation, preserving and presenting the 400-year-old history of the landowning triracial people of color of the Winton Triangle. Numerous awards, too many to name. So we thank Marvin for his service and his dedication to this area, and we thank him for serving on our board since 2019. I'll turn it over to you, Marvin.
Oh, thank you. Herb, I'm glad you mentioned Coalfield's post office, because I used to pick up mail from Jack Perry's post office, and my father built the current post office, had the current post office built, and I'm the building manager of the Coalfield post office. I believe my computer needs to be woken up. Wake up, thank you, darling. Also, not only am I the building manager for the Coalfield Post Office and head of the Chowan Discovery Group, I'm also the husband of Carol Joyce here. Very nice lady, I hope you'll get to meet her. Thanks to Richard Gadsden, a Winton native and one of my teachers, he loaned me his grandmother's diaries, Annie Walden Jones, and I transcribed them. Annie Walden was the daughter of James and Millie Walden. I'm a distant first cousin of Millie. I might be related to James if I do a little more work. And James was a sergeant in the 2nd Cavalry, U.S. Colored, in the Civil War. And they had a farm down the road from where my great-grandfather bought a farm after the war. And in their census in 1870, you will see this name, J.R. Cadis, and you see the Walden's name here. Cadis, and I'll get to Cadis. So Annie Walden's parents had 7 daughters, and here's James and Millie, that's Annie Walden. And J.R. Cadis, or Joseph Cadis, along with Booker T. Washington, attended what is now Howard University, and he taught in Hertford County and became the founder of Chowan Academy, and it's now C.S. Brown High School STEM. And he became Winton's Postmaster in 1887. And you see his name listed along there. Well, so Annie knew the Cadises as a family friend since he lived as a teenager with her parents. And she was also the first graduate of Chowan Academy, and Joseph Cadis was the executive of the group that founded Chowan Academy. And then she went on to Shaw University, and that's her circled in her graduating class in 1890. This is another photograph of her at the time of Richard Jones in 1891, another relative of mine. And her house is still cat-a-corner diagonally from the duck through in Winton, next to where W.J. Boone's is, whatever it is W.J. Boone has. and in fact, she and her husband owned that building next door. And this is Annie and F. Jones with their 9 children around 1912, and F died in 1916. All of these children went on to college. And Alice Nickens, in fact, that's Alice Nickens right there for many of you who knew her, and her sister Sally. And that's Richard Gadsden's mother. And so in 1933 and 1932, her granddaughter, Evelyn, gives her a diary, a 2-year diary, and Annie begins to use the diaries. And so in March 19, 1935, she writes, "Feeling fair today all day, cleaned house, washed dishes, went to post office, just 2 blocks away. Then for children's milk, made pillow ticks for Annie, her daughter who was teaching in Gates County, embroidered, worked on flowers, took a nap, read, worked out crossword puzzles, and made a few visits." Now, isn't this a lot like your current day? Except you can only do half of that? March 20th, nice card from Buddy, her youngest son, telling of Douglas and Beth's baby. Such a surprise. Went to post office. Heard from Evelyn and received Snowden High School paper also. That's where her son was a principal. Set out flowers, worked the strawberries. February 25th, 1933, Saturday. Alice went to hospital to see Sally B. This was probably in Suffolk, because we didn't have a hospital then. No better. Nice warm day, scrubbed some, clean yard, packed and mailed Evelyn a box. Evelyn lived in New York, one of her older daughters. Went uptown to see about wood, was caught in the rain. Agnes brought me home. April 2nd, 1935. The sun came out today, delighting everyone. We did not wash, however. Had lovely letters from Aunt Genia, Voigt, one of her older sons, and Sally. Both the children sent money to help out, bless their hearts, was able to go through routine of work today. Her children were always sending her money. Monday, March 2nd, 1936. I began to wash the breakfast dishes, finished some letters, one to Voigt, from whom I just received a grand letter with a grander enclosure. On to Buddy, one to Dr. R.H. Lee for Mrs. Bass inquiring about her son. June 24th, 1937, 46 years ago today, I walked up the aisle of the old chapel, which is now South Winton, at Waters Training School, First Baptist Winton, and promised to love always until death my husband. I did. He proved worthy. I am celebrating my anniversary, writing letters to my children. Other excerpts. Had a darling letter from Buddy, but financing closed. Had a nice letter from Voight with weekly contribution, for which I am extremely thankful. Medicine Voight sent. Voight was a physician. Voight sent helping me and so thankful for the money he sends. 1942, December 5th, Saturday. It's been a long time since I wrote in a diary, but I'm now in my 75th year. My children still very good to me, how much I love them. I am suffering from heart trouble with a cold, but up and able to wait on myself. For this I am thankful. By the way, we're approaching December 5th, the 1-year anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Had a darling letter from Buddy, but financing closed. Had a nice letter from Voight with weekly contribution, for which I'm extremely thankful. I think I'm repeating myself here. But this slide also shows part of the home, and there's Main Street. And it says, there's no place like home, sweet home. December 23rd, 1942. This is past the first anniversary of Pearl Harbor. Dear Diary, I did not forget you, but have been too sick to write. It is now 2 days to Christmas. Since I last wrote on your pages, we have had 2 heavy snows and rain, rain, rain. There's a scarcity of gas, because gas is rationed, and nobody is allowed to travel unless you're compelled. So I don't know that anybody will be here Christmas. Sally wrote that she was coming. I've been in bed since last Friday, but the doctor says I can get up Christmas Day. Sugar and coffee are rationed, but I still have plenty. December 23rd continued. We know that every day will be worse and that the war will last a long while. I should pause. In Europe, actually, the war got better because the U.S. troops were now in North Africa and getting ready, poised to go within 5 months to go into Italy. So the tide was really starting to turn by this time. We have received scores of Christmas cards from friends in Philadelphia, Rhode Island, New York, Washington, from so many places. In 69 years, you made many, many friends. I've sent out many too. In town, I sent to those only who were aged and sick and alone in the world. If I only had money, I could make so many happy. Had a letter today from Voight. December 24th, 1942, Christmas Eve. I'm feeling better this morning. It's the warmest, it is warmer, and the sun is shining beautifully. Although the railroads are restricting passengers. Many visitors are in town. Ms. Eula Reed, Ms. Daisy Roscoe, and daughter already here. The Christmas cards continue to come in. One from Jesse T. Jones in England, a corporal, one of our finest town boys. He has a brother over there too, Richard Jones. And Christmas Eve continued. People are busy today delivering gifts. People are trying so hard to have the Christmas spirit, though depressed because of through the war. We should still rejoice and be happy to know that our fight is one to save Christianity and pray and work that the Allies win. On Christmas Day itself, Christmas, how the days have flown since last Christmas. I'm so thankful to see today. Evelyn Voight came Monday night, so I have with me Effie, Evelyn, Voight, Alice, and Annie, 5 of her 9 children. It is bitter cold and a heavy snow on the ground. December 26, 2 more come in today, Rudolph and Buddy. They come through ice and snow. Rudolph did not stay very long, just overnight, as he left his wife Mildred in Suffolk with her mother. So glad to see Buddy. December 27th, Friday, Voight left the day for Washington where he'll stay overnight. Evan decided to remain with us for a while until the 4th or 5th anyway. We're all weather-bound, so are having a nice time together. 7 years later, in 1949, Annie Walden Jones, who enjoyed what she dropped off and picked up from the Winton Central Post Office, died. Her funeral was held on the campus of C.S. Brown School, and she was buried alongside her husband at the Pleasant Place Church, where she was baptized and was married. So I want to thank you for the opportunity to share excerpts of Annie's diaries and excerpts concerning the Winton Century Post Office. Thank you.
Now, our post office will be open in a few minutes. The old post office is just 2 blocks down the street that way. We have a friend with a golf course, if you'd like to ride that, Linnell. Linnell says she gets on it first. And it's a beautiful day to walk. You may drive on down too and park alongside the street. For the future, we're going to open the museum by request. We're going to ask permission for people to be able to call the town of Winton during business hours and arrange for a time to see it by the town contacting me, and I'll contact those who'd like to visit. We'll be open for groups, and we'll figure out how to advertise this and get more people in to see it. We thank you for coming. Thank you for being a part of this, and we hope you enjoy the museum. And have some food, please. All right.